Now, a top focus on WION: protesters against Israel's judicial overhaul plan to demonstrate at and around the Ben Gurion Airport. The demonstrations are being held with the aim of disrupting Prime Minister Netanyahu's flight to Germany on Wednesday afternoon. The organizers say that thousands of vehicles will try to drive slowly at the access road to the airport. This is bound to cause traffic jam. Just last week, the protests forced Netanyahu to take a helicopter from Jerusalem to the airport ahead of his trip to Italy. Protests against the judicial reform bills have been going on for weeks across Israel, and violent confrontations between police and protesters have also taken place. However, these demonstrations reached a new tipping point on Tuesday, where protesters blocked the road leading to the Prime Minister's office compound with chains and pipes.
We're blocking the road to the government offices. We're here because our government is promoting steps that will hurt our democracy. Our country is not good with equality, not for minorities, not for people who are not Jewish, not for women, not for LGBTQs. And if the reform which they are promoting right now will pass, things will get much worse. Our only protection, which isn't perfect as it is, will just disappear. And we're very worried. We're here for the people we care about. We're here for the people we don't even know who are getting hurt from this reform.
The Israeli Knesset on Tuesday advanced a key bill. It limits the Supreme Court's ability to overturn laws and it deems unconstitutional. However, it still needs to be approved at a second and a third reading before it becomes a law. For more on this, we are now being joined by correspondent Jody Cohen. Welcome to the broadcast, Joey. What is the latest happening around the airport? Is it looking like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be able to take his flight to Germany?
I'm sure he will be able to get to his flight to Germany. Like last week when he was traveling to Rome and the protesters tried to disrupt the roads leading up to the airport. Then he ended up getting a helicopter to make his flight. So I'm sure he will have a contingency plan in place. But I'm at Ben Gurion Airport, which is the largest airport in Israel. I can't tell you, I've just been speaking to a group of commandos from the Entebbe raid. Now, this was the raid, the famous Israeli raid, when they went into Entebbe to rescue hostages that were taken by some Palestinian terrorists. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister's brother, Yoni Netanyahu, was killed in that very raid. And some of the people who went in and were involved in that raid with him were here. And I've just been speaking to them. They were here and they've come to protest against the judicial reform plans. And as you might be able to see behind me, this is the road leading up to the departures area of the airport. And cars are getting through. The protest has only just started, but we're hearing more and more cars honking their horns, lots of people coming past with flags, driving slowly, intentionally, in order to make it harder to disrupt things in the area. Now, this protest has been coordinated with the police. The police have allowed this for a limited time on Wednesday. The protesters just started literally about 5 minutes ago. We are expecting thousands of cars, not just around here, but also in the access road leading up to the airport. And it remains to be seen whether or not the government will take heed of the protest, whether or not a compromise will be found.
Exactly, Jody. These protests are nothing short of a movement, what is happening across Israel. Even after weeks of clear dissent from the public, Netanyahu is not budging down. So I want to ask you, do you think there is anything that will change the government's judicial reform plan?
So I think it's important to remember, I've been speaking to people all across the country in different communities. And while there's up to 500,000 people coming out and protesting on the streets to have their voices heard, there are a number of people who actually agree with the reforms. They feel that the judiciary has got too strong. And yet there are many people as well who feel that while the judiciary is too strong, the proposals would make the government too strong. So they would like to see some sort of compromise in the middle. We know that President Herzog and his team, they've literally been working through the night. They're devoting all of their time to try and come up with a compromise solution. They're speaking to all the different parties and groups involved. President Herzog is expected to present a compromise framework at some point in the coming days, and various other compromise solutions have been proposed as well, including, interestingly, from the Kohelet Forum. Now, that's a conservative think tank, and they helped to shape much of these original proposals that are being debated now. They've actually just come out today and said that they are now suggesting a compromise position. We also know that the governor of the Bank of Israel has said that this process has been too hasty and he would like to see it slowed down. Whether or not a compromise can be found remains to be seen. Time is running out. The bills are still being debated in Parliament. The government is saying that they are willing to talk, but they're not going to stop the legislative process. And that's seen to be a tactic to put pressure on the opposition. The opposition is saying that they'll talk, but only once the legislation has been halted. And we know that the Justice Minister would like to wrap this all up in the next week or two. So it really is crunch time now.
All right. As you said, time is running out, and 500,000 people on the streets is not something Prime Minister Netanyahu can continue to ignore. Thank you for all those insights, Jody. Thank you for joining us from Jerusalem.
Thank you.